Today, you are going to do a lab where you're going to take an inventory of traits and then you're going to compare that to your classmates. So it's very important that you wait to do the second part of this after we've gone through this whole Google Doc. Okay, if you try to jump ahead and answer questions, it's not going to work out correctly. So just do this along with me. So traits, as we learned yesterday, are observable characteristics that we inherit from our parents. Some traits are common in a population. Our population is going to be our class, while others are not. Every person has a different overall combination of traits that makes them unique. So we're going to look at this website, Observable Human Characteristics, look over the information which goes along with your Google Doc, and then watch a very quick video on what are traits before we do this survey. Okay, so let's look at this website. So here are the traits we're going to be looking at today. And again, we are all unique. So even though that we share some characteristics with our peers and our family members, every one of us has a unique combination of traits. Some traits are controlled by genes that pass from parent to child. Others are acquired through learning, but most are influenced by a combination of genes and environmental factors. So here are some examples of variable traits that are easily observed. Earlobe attachment would be this first one. So you're going to look, when you complete this Google Doc, you're going to look at your earlobes. And if your earlobes hang free, they are detached or unattached. That would be this. You may have to get a classmate to look for you. You may have to look in your, use your camera on your phone or a mirror. If they connect directly to the side of your head, they are attached. So attached, like you don't have a lobe hanging down, and detached or unattached. Earlobe attachment is a continuous trait. So while most earlobes can be neatly categorized or attached or unattached, some are kind of in between. And some sources say that this trait is controlled by a single gene, with unattached earlobes being dominant over attached, but no published studies support this view. So earlobe attachment and shape are inherited, but it's likely that many genes contribute to this trait. So as such, its pattern of inheritance is difficult to predict. The next one we're going to look at is tongue rolling. We saw this in one of the videos that we watched in our lesson. Some people can curl their tongue up on the sides to form a tube shape. In 1940, Alfred Sturtevant observed that about 70% of people of European ancestry could roll their tongues, while the remaining 30% could not. Many sources state that tongue rolling is controlled by a single gene. However, as Sturtevant observed, people can learn to roll their tongue as they get older, suggesting that environmental factors, not just genes, influence the trait. Consistent with this view, just 70% of identical twins share the trait. So if tongue rolling were influenced only by genes, then 100% of identical traits would share, or identical twins would share the trait. And I have tried to do this. I cannot do it. Like, I can't even learn how to do it. My tongue just doesn't cooperate. So you'll know if you can or if you can't. Dimples. Dimples are small, natural indentations on the cheeks. They can appear on one or both sides, and they often change with age. Some people are born with dimples that disappear when they are adults. Others develop dimples later in childhood. Dimples are highly heritable, meaning that people who have dimples tend to have children with dimples, but not always. Because of their inheritance, it's not completely predictable. Dimples are considered an irregular dominant trait. Having dimples is probably controlled mainly by one gene, but also influenced by other genes. So you have them or you don't. Handedness. This describes your preference for either using left or right hand for activities such as writing or throwing a ball. Overall, about 10% of people are left-handed, but the number varies among cultures, anywhere from 0.5% all the way up to 24%. Some have reported that handedness is controlled by just one or two genes, but this is not the case. Multiple studies present evidence that handedness is controlled by many genes, at least 30 and as many as 100. Each with a small effect, many are linked to brain development. Environment also plays an important role. Some cultures actively discourage left-handedness. Freckles. Freckles are small concentrated spots of a skin pigment called melanin. Most fair-skinned, red-haired people have them. Freckles are controlled primarily by the MC1R gene. Freckles show a dominant inheritance pattern. So parents who have freckles tend to have children with freckles. Variations, also called alleles of MC1R, control freckle number. Other genes in the environment influence freckle size, color, and pattern. For example, sun exposure can temporarily cause more freckles to appear. Curly hair. Round hair follicles make straight hair. Flattened or C-shaped hair follicles make curly hair. And oval hair follicles make wavy hair. Hair texture is a continuous trait, meaning that hair can be straight or curly or anywhere in between. Curly hair is influenced by genes much more than by the environment. While curly hair runs in families, people with curly hair tend to have children with curly hair. Its inheritance patterns are often unpredictable. Multiple genes control hair texture, and different variations in these genes are found in different populations. For instance, curly hair is common in African populations, rare in Asian populations, and in between in Europeans. Straight hair in Asians is mostly caused by variations in two genes, different genes from the ones that influence hair texture in Europeans. And different genetic variations make hair curly in African and European populations. Okay, this one's pretty cool. Hand clasping. Without thinking about it, fold your hands together by interlocking your fingers. Which thumb is on top? Your left or your right? One study found that 55% of people place their left thumb on top, 45% place their right thumb on top, and 1% have no preference. A study of identical twins concluded that hand clasping has a strong genetic basis. In other words, most twins share the trait, but it doesn't fit a predictable inheritance pattern. It is likely affected by multiple genes as well as environmental factors. So that's one that I had really not thought about. Okay, this one, red-green color blindness. Red-green color blindness is caused by a single gene located on the X chromosome. This gene codes for a protein in the eye that detects certain colors of light. When this gene is defective, the eye cannot differentiate between red and green. You need at least one working copy of the gene to be able to see red and green. Since boys have just one X chromosome, which they receive from their mother, inheriting one defective copy of the gene will render them colorblind. Girls have two X chromosomes. To be colorblind, they must inherit two defective copies, one from each parent. Consequently, red-green colorblindness is much more frequent in boys, 1 in 12, than in girls, which is 1 in 250. So red-green colorblindness follows a very predictable recessive sex-linked inheritance pattern. A woman with one defective copy of the gene and one functional copy, even though she is not colorblind herself, she's known as a carrier. she has a 50% chance of passing the defective copy to each of her children. Half of her sons will be colorblind, and half of her daughters will be carriers. So that is pretty cool. Okay, when you get to the Google form that you're going to fill out, I have 2 colorblind tests. This is the first link, and you'll click here to take the test. It's free. If for some reason this link does not work for you, then you're going to do this link. Okay? So on this one, you have to actually enter the number that you see. Make sure you answer every question, and then it will tell you at the bottom. Okay? So again, you're going to do that when you're doing the Google form. The last one that we're going to do is hairline shape. If your hairline forms a point at the center of your forehead, you have what's called a widow's peak. You have to pull your hair back to see that. So either get a classmate to look at it for you, or again, use your phone or a mirror. If not, if you don't have this peak, it's just straight across. While some sources say that a widow's peak is a dominant trait controlled by one gene, no scientific study supports this claim. Complicating the question of hereditability is the fact that the trait is continuous. Some people have just a slight suggestion of a peak. So if you just have a slight suggestion, then say you have a peak. Widow's peak is likely controlled by genes rather than environment. But while hairline shape tends to run in families, its pattern of inheritance is usually unpredictable, suggesting that multiple genes are involved. And while we're not doing the PTC tasting, this was one of the videos that we had yesterday. So either you taste it or you don't. And you can order this paper if you would like to do this test. I wish I had thought ahead enough and gotten your principal to order some where we could do this, but I'm sorry. Maybe you can order some for yourself, or maybe when you take biology and you're talking about genetics, your teacher will do it with you then. All right, we're going to watch this quick video and then I'm going to let you do the Google form. So what are traits? It's only a minute and a half.
We are all unique. Each of us has a combination of characteristics or traits that is different from anyone else's. Some traits are easy to see, like eye color, height, and freckles. Others are less visible, like asthma, musical talent, and disease risk. Some traits are inherited, and some are shaped by the environment. Eye color and nose shape are inherited traits. They are controlled by genes, which we inherit from our parents. The language we speak and the music we like are shaped by the environment, which includes our culture, our experiences, and our physical surroundings. Most traits are influenced by both genes and the environment. For example, tall parents tend to have tall children, but height is also influenced by nutrition. And while diabetes tends to run in families, it can be controlled by diet and exercise. Even when someone is born with a body type suited for dancing or playing basketball, it takes training and practice to learn these skills. Together, our genes and our experiences make us who we are.
All right. So that takes us back to our Google form. So now, what combination of these traits do you have? And you're going to complete this survey, just answering these very quick questions. There are the links to those colorblind tests that I was talking about. And then you're going to submit it. Okay, the second part to this is you're going to wait until I tell you to do the analyzation portion of this assignment. So that is this analyze results. And it even tells you when you open it up, do not do this assignment until I tell you to. You must wait until everyone completes the survey to get accurate results. So in other words, I have to share the results with you so you can answer these questions. And the questions are, which trait do you wish you had inherited but did not? And by the way, you're going to be typing all these answers in. Which trait or traits do you have in common with the majority of the students in your class? And you're going to tell that by looking at the results that I share with you. So again, you can't answer this until most of your class has done the survey. Which trait or traits do you not have in common with the majority of the students in your class? Which trait or traits does the majority of students in your class have in common? In other words, which trait or trait has the highest percentage? Note here, you may think that the more common traits are better, but this is not always the case. Some traits simply show up more frequently in the human population. Which trait or traits does the majority of students in your class not have in common? In other words, which trait or traits has the lowest percentage? And if you were to compare your class results with a different class, do you think that the results would be the same? Why or why not? Okay, make sure you answer that why or why not. Don't just give me a yes or no. All right, so again, do not do the second part to this activity until I tell you to do so. So you must be in Zoom for this to work out the way it is supposed to work.